Have you ever found yourself second-guessing a text you sent, replaying a conversation in your head wondering if you said the wrong thing, or shrinking yourself just to feel accepted, even when it goes against who you truly are? Insecurity can be the invisible thread running through so many moments of our lives, and left unchecked, it becomes the very thing that sabotages our relationships, our happiness, and even our self-worth. But what if I told you that insecurity isn't a flaw to be ashamed of, but a message that, when understood, could become your greatest source of power and clarity? If you've ever felt not enough or feared being too much, this conversation might just shift everything. Insecurity often gets misunderstood. People treat it like a personal defect, as though feeling unsure or vulnerable means there's something wrong with them. But that's not what insecurity is. In fact, the very fact that you feel it means you care. It means you're paying attention. It means you have a deep longing for connection, for meaning, for value, and you want to protect that. That's not weakness. That's awareness. That's sensitivity. And sensitivity, when owned instead of hidden, becomes a superpower. The problem isn't that we feel insecure. The problem is when we decide our insecurity is the truth. We feel anxious before a date and tell ourselves it means we're unlovable. We feel unsure after not getting a text back and decide we're not interesting enough. But all insecurity is doing in those moments is trying to prepare us for disappointment. It's saying, I don't want you to get hurt. But we take that whisper and turn it into a declaration. Something must be wrong with me. That's where the pain lives, not in the feeling, but in the meaning we attach to it. The real shift happens when you stop seeing insecurity as something to fight or hide and instead start using it as a signal, a message, a clue about what matters to you and where you might still need healing. That's where growth begins, not by becoming someone else, but by learning to understand and support yourself through the emotional waves. And then there's the voice inside your head, the one that seems to speak with authority but is actually just an echo of old pain, criticism, and rejection. That voice is cunning. It shows up in your quiet moments. It says things like, "You always do this," or "No one really cares," presents these thoughts as facts. And because you've heard them so often, you start to believe them. But they're not facts, they're stories. Stories shaped by experiences you didn't ask for, moments that hurt you, and patterns you've repeated to feel safe. But here's what's true. That voice isn't who you are. It's just loud. And sometimes it's the only one talking. You have to create a new voice, one that sounds like compassion, strength, and wisdom. One that reminds you of what you've overcome, not what you fear. And the more you feed that voice, the quieter the critic becomes. Not because the fear disappears, but because the truth finally gets a chance to speak louder. So many people walk into relationships believing that love will be the cure-all. That once they're chosen, once they feel desired, once someone finally says, "You're the one," all of their insecurity will vanish. But that's not what happens. Love doesn't eliminate insecurity, it reveals it. It brings it right to the surface. The moment you care about someone, the stakes feel higher. You start to notice parts of yourself you weren't even aware of before. Your need for reassurance, your fear of abandonment, your impulse to overgive or overanalyze just to feel safe. And when that happens, it's easy to think, something's wrong with me. I shouldn't be feeling this way. But no, this is the moment that shows you exactly where you still need to heal. It's not a failure. It's an invitation. You can either bury that feeling and let it dictate your behavior, pulling away, clinging tighter, people-pleasing, or you can face it and ask yourself, what is this really about? Where did I first learn to feel unworthy? And how long have I carried that story with me? Relationships don't break us. They expose what's already fragile inside. And that's the gift, if you're brave enough to lean in. Because when you see your insecurities clearly, you no longer have to hand them the steering wheel. Perfection is a performance. And sadly, it's one most of us have been taught to audition for. Be more polished. Be less emotional. Be the easygoing one. Be sexy but not too much. Smart but not intimidating. This pressure to be just right is exhausting, and it creates a version of you that's technically flawless but emotionally hollow. What we forget is this: real connection doesn't happen when someone sees a perfect version of you. It happens when they see you unfiltered, unguarded, present. When you're there in that moment, not trying to win approval but just being. That kind of presence is magnetic. It's rare. People feel safe around it, drawn to it, because it gives them permission to drop the performance too. You don't need to dim your light to make others feel comfortable. You don't need to hide your quirks, your edges, or your real emotions. The right connection won't ask you to be less. It will invite you to be more of who you already are. When insecurity shows up, the instinct is often to retreat, to go quiet, to smile through the discomfort, to pretend everything's fine while something inside us is screaming for acknowledgement. We convince ourselves it's safer that way. If we don't speak up, we can't be judged, rejected, or misunderstood. But silence doesn't protect us. It suffocates us. It locks us in a pattern where the very things we need, connection, clarity, respect, stay out of reach. Confidence isn't some magical quality you're born with. It's a muscle you build every time you choose to show up and express something true. That doesn't mean dumping all your feelings out without filter. It means giving your emotions somewhere to go. It's about saying, "Hey, that hurt me," or "I feel unsure right now," or "This is what I need," and saying it not to manipulate or get a reaction, but to simply honor yourself. The more you practice expression, the more you reinforce the belief that your voice matters, that you can handle discomfort, that vulnerability isn't the enemy. It's the doorway to deeper confidence. Because every time you speak your truth, you create a small but powerful shift. You stop waiting for someone else to make you feel worthy, and you start doing it yourself. There's this narrative floating around that in order to be strong, you have to be hard. That emotions make you weak. That if you're sensitive, you're unstable. That if you care deeply, you'll get crushed. But here's the truth. You can be soft and powerful. You can feel everything and still be unshakable. Real strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's the ability to feel deeply and still move forward with grace and purpose. It's knowing you might get hurt and still choosing to love. It's crying one moment and standing your ground the next. There's so much courage in being emotionally available in a world that teaches us to shut down. And when you embrace your softness, when you stop apologizing for your heart, you become magnetic. Because people can feel that you're real, that you're grounded, that you're not hiding. You don't need to toughen up to be taken seriously. You just need to trust that your softness is not a liability. It's a signal of your depth, your presence, and your power. One of the ways insecurity tries to protect us is by controlling people. And we don't even realize we're doing it. We test. We pull back to see if they'll chase. We drop hints instead of speaking directly. We wait for them to prove they care instead of saying what we actually need. But that kind of behavior doesn't build love, it builds confusion. And confusion doesn't make people stay. It makes them unsure, just like we are. The truth is, people don't respond to games. They respond to clarity. When you set standards instead of laying traps, you invite honesty. You invite real connection. Saying, "This is what I want," or "This is how I need to feel in a relationship," is vulnerable, yes, but it's also powerful. It shows that you're not begging for crumbs, you're owning your needs without apology. That's attractive. And when you do that, you weed out the people who were only interested in the surface version of you. You create space for someone who can actually meet you in your fullness. So don't waste your energy trying to test someone into caring. Use that energy to get clear on what you're actually looking for. Because when you lead with standards, you stop trying to be chosen, you start choosing. The energy that pulls people in the most isn't based on looks, charm, or charisma. It's certainty. That calm, grounded confidence that says, I know who I am, and I know what I bring to the table. You can't fake that energy. It's not arrogance. It's not perfection. It's certainty. And certainty doesn't mean you never have doubts or insecurities. It means you don't let those things define how you live or love. It means you're not desperate for someone else to validate you because you've already done the work to validate yourself. That kind of confidence creates gravity. People feel it. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't shrink. You move through the world knowing that your value isn't up for debate. That if someone doesn't see it, it's not your job to convince them. It's your job to keep moving until you find someone who does. And when you walk in that kind of energy, everything changes. Not because the world around you is different, but because you are. If anything in this message spoke to you, if even one idea made you pause and reflect, then you've already begun shifting something inside you. Insecurity may not disappear overnight, but with every intentional choice, with every new boundary, with every moment you show up fully, you reclaim your power. So let's talk about it. What resonated with you most today? Drop it in the comments. Let's build a space where we lift each other up, where we normalize growth, and where no one feels alone in their journey. If you found value here, give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and make sure you subscribe for more heartfelt, empowering conversations like this. And hey, what should we talk about next? Your voice matters. Let me know.